What is happening, sports fans? It's Teran Rodriguez here with another episode of Lead Off Thursdays. We have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot of sports to discuss, such as the Florida Panthers repeating as Stanley Cup champions. How did they do it? And what did they do to take down the Edmonton Oilers? Also, Game 6 of the NBA Finals is tonight. Can the Thunder strike down and end the series, or will the Pacers push it to 7? Also, you've got a big trade happening as Rafael Devers is heading to the San Francisco Giants in a big blockbuster trade. Will that be able to help out the Giants in their pursuit of winning the NL West? Also, the Indiana Fever are rising as Caitlin Clark is back and better than ever as she is straight up just mowing down everybody. We also got the UFL talk as the DC Defenders were able to take care of business in the UFL Championship against the Michigan Panthers. You also have motorsports with George Russell winning the Canadian Grand Prix. You also got Shane Van Gisbergen winning NASCAR in Mexico, and you also have Kirkwood winning in IndyCar. And Le Mans was absolutely amazing as Ferrari, are they building a dynasty by chance? And you also got NCAA track and field with USC and Texas A&M winning on the men's side, and you got Georgia winning on the women's side. You've got the College World Series as it's Coastal Carolina and LSU for all the marbles. Will Coastal Carolina turn back the clock to 2016, or will the Tigers pounce on the Chanticleers? All that and more here on Lead Off Thursdays. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another episode of Lead Off Thursdays here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Lead Off Thursdays. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, Thursday wherever you're listening from. Either way, you've made your way into episode 2 of Lead Off Thursdays. And without any further delay, let's get on into to all of the sports action. So we'll start off with last week in 5 minutes. Yes, this will take 5 minutes, I guarantee you. So starting off with the Stanley Cup, the Florida Panthers did it. They repeated as champions in the NHL as they wound up winning their second straight Stanley Cup, which is never, ever, 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 ever easy. And they took down those pesky Edmonton Oilers for the second straight year. The Canada drought has reached 32 years in terms of the Stanley Cup. So unfortunate for the Oilers, but the Florida Panthers are starting to look like a dynasty. And then jumping on into the NBA Finals, the Thunder are up 3-2 on the Pacers. They're 1 win away from their first ever NBA championship, but they have to win. They have to do so winning in Indiana. The big thing is that the Pacers are limping into tonight's game, mainly Tyrese Halliburton, as he is basically been the focal point for this Pacers team, whereas the Thunder, they just have all their bases in terms of their check marks being checked off. And then the WNBA, we have Caitlin Clark with her return as the Fever are into the Commissioner's Cup final, which is epic sauce. And is she starting to become the face of the WNBA? That's the big thing right there. But I digress in that regard. And then jumping to the MLB, we had Rafael Devers being traded to the San Francisco Giants. That kind of shook things up in terms of that Sunday night baseball game where the Dodgers and Giants played. The Giants had Kyle Harrison, but then because of that trade, the Giants had to throw out another pitcher to replace Harrison. So that was big right there. The Yankees had lost 6 straight before winning today against the Angels, who once again are on a little bit of a surge, but is that actual hope or is it false hope? And the Mariners are also kind of on the little bit of the trail in terms of the comeback, but is that kind of a little bit of a false alarm, or can the Mariners actually challenge those Houston Astros? And then jumping to the UFL, the DC Defenders managed to take down the Michigan Panthers to win their first ever UFL crown. They wound up winning 58-34. So for a team named the Defenders, we got to see a lot of offense from DC as they wound up winning their first UFL championship. A big time win for the Defenders, bringing home a championship to the DMV, especially with a first year head coach. And then in terms of motorsports, we had George Russell winning the Canadian Grand Prix. A very nice job by him as he led most of the race. And even when Max Verstappen closed in on him, he was able to widen the gap and make sure that Verstappen was not going to surpass him. Max Verstappen did get second place, just for those wondering. So you had that right there. Then we had NASCAR in Mexico City, as we had Shane Van Gisbergen winning the first international race in more than 70 years. We haven't had an international race in NASCAR in over 70 years, and Shane Van Gisbergen shined in the win. He was able to hold off a plethora of racers, and that's how he was able to win. And then we had Kirkwood winning IndyCar in St. Louis, the gateway race in IndyCar, as we are now halfway through the IndyCar season, which I think is pretty awesome right there. So a great win for Kirkwood. And then Le Mans was absolutely amazing. Ferrari, it's time to start having a discussion about Le Mans, or in terms of Ferrari being a dynasty. I think they're still on their dominance, and they're just not going anywhere. And you also had Robert Kubica, age 40, wound up having an emotional win. It was a great win for him. And finally, we have NCAA track and field, where Texas A&M and USC wound up winning the men's title. Good for both of those schools. And we had Georgia winning the women's title, which was good for those Bulldogs, continuing their dominance in terms of track and field. And USC continuing its tradition in track and field, albeit they have to share it with Texas A&M. But hey, that's still pretty darn good, because USC has a great tradition of amazing athletes coming out of men's and women's track and field. So that is that for the last week in 5 minutes segment of the show. So let's jump on into the game and series of the weekend. We have the Phillies taking on the Mets. This is going to be big right here, just because it's the battle of two NL East teams, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun times right here. So not a lot separates these two teams, as they're actually only separated by one game in the NL East, which I think is going to be pretty epic, as the Mets actually play the Braves while the Phillies have the Marlins tonight. So before we can look at that, we have those matchups right there. But going back to this matchup, this is going to be very fun. This is going to be a great series right here. Pitching is really going to have to come in key for the Mets, as the Phillies, they've kind of been getting their upswing when it comes to this. And but as for the Phillies, they've kind of been licking their wounds in terms of some of their players being on the IL, as Bryce Harper is on the 10-day IL. You got Aaron Nola on the 60-day IL. And you got plenty of other players on the IL, or that's like day-to-day and whatnot. So that's something to watch for in terms of the Phillies. And then as for the Mets, they too have kind of been licking their wounds, as Francisco Lindor has had the hot bat, and Philly has had a lot of struggles within their bullpen. So you kind of have to wonder, will something give here, or will Francisco Lindor keep up the hot pace when it comes to his gameplay? For the Mets and their injuries, Brett Baty is day-to-day, and then Frankie Montas is on the 60-day IL, and then they actually had Kodai Senga just reach on the 50-day IL as well. So a lot of these players they got a plethora of injuries to deal with. So if you're wondering if your team has it bad when it comes to injuries, well, the Mets kind of are in that same boat. So there you go. It's going to be a fun series. I think the Mets take 2 out of 3. I mean, the Phillies are going to make it interesting, but I think the Mets just have that X factor and it factor when it comes to this. And they know that if they ever want to keep pace in terms of the National League, which is stacked, they have to win as many games as possible. And I feel that this series is going to be big because, like I mentioned, it's only a 1-game lead. So if the Mets can take care of business, I think they could definitely continue to build off this, just because this is a classic rivalry. It's East Coast versus East Coast. What more could you want out of these two teams, especially between divisional rivals? And I think this is the perfect game and series of the week right here. So that is that right there. So staying on the baseball diamond and jumping. Oh, but first, we'll actually take a commercial break before we get on into some NCAA baseball. But when we return, we'll talk some NCAA baseball with the College World Series. It's just down to do 2 teams, and we'll have so much more to talk about here on Leadoff Thursdays on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
And we are back with Lead Off Thursdays on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Thank you to those 2 sponsors for being the official sponsors of IE Sports Radio. But jumping back into it, we have the Men's College World Series. It's down to just 2 teams. 64 teams entered, but only 2 teams remain. But only 1 team shall be the champion in terms of NCAA baseball nationally. So it's down to just 2 teams. LSU and Coastal Carolina. So bit of a backstory when it comes to Coastal Carolina. Their last finals appearance in terms of the College World Series on the men's side was 2016 when they wound up winning it all. So, and if I recall correctly, I want to say that is their only Division I national championship. I could be wrong when it comes to that, but it's at least their last national championship in terms of winning a national championship. But they take on a juggernaut in LSU because the SEC is no joke when it comes to baseball and softball, and LSU has proven the longevity of making it through everything in terms of the entire College World Series. Heck, a lot of these teams from the from the SEC. Some even lost in the opening round, which is crazy if you ask me. But for the Chanticleers, they actually are on a 26-game win streak, as nothing is really standing in their way. But it's the Sun Belt versus the SEC, which I think is pretty awesome if you ask me. And LSU has had some clutch wins and some big-time plays to help get them to where they need to be. This is a very good LSU team, and honestly, I really think that it could go either way with both of these teams. And it really sucks that one team has to lose, because both these teams have worked really hard to get to this point of the season, or at this point of the pinnacle. But I got to go with Coastal Carolina. I hope I'm not jinxing them, but I will say I think Coastal Carolina will take it in a 3-game thriller. I feel that pitching is going to boil down to what this team can and can't do. I think that'll be the X factor in terms of preventing LSU from getting on the board. I think LSU's strong dominance will kind of come to a screeching halt. And I think Coastal Carolina kind of being the feel-good Cinderella story, even though that was kind of Murray State at first, I think Coastal Carolina's story will prevail, and I think they'll complete the final chapter and they'll pull off the win. But knowing my luck, it's probably going to be LSU winning it all. But I'm picking Coastal Carolina. I love Coastal Carolina. I think mid-major schools are vastly underrated, and it's another, like I said, it's a good feel-good story. So let's hope for my sake, and let's hope for Coastal Carolina's sake, they're able to pull it off. But don't be surprised if LSU comes out swinging. No pun intended. All right, but that is that for the Men's College World Series. It's going to be a fun one. So let's jump on over to the NBA, as we actually have Game 6 happening, I want to say right now, as we've got the Thunder and the Pacers, as we could be seeing history here. We could, it's tomorrow. No, it's tonight. It's tonight. Hold on. It's tonight, everybody. I'm sorry. False alarm here. And it's actually going to be coming on in about 5 or so minutes, which I think is pretty cool. So Thunder Pacers are kind of the underdog, but I think their magic is starting to run out, especially with Tyrese Halliburton, their leading scorer, coming into this game nowhere near 100%. You got to love the effort from him. You got to love the determination and his bravery when it comes to playing here. But at the same time, I think the Thunder are just too loaded. I think the Thunder will close this series out, but it's going to be close. Indiana has proven time after time to defy all the odds, but I just think that without 100% Tyrese Halliburton, this Pacers team just doesn't have that it factor, and I think that's going to show in this series. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been absolutely amazing for this Thunder team. There's a reason why he was named MVP. So, and I honestly, I can't believe the Clippers dealt this man. Like, come on, Clips. Anyway, I digress in that regard, as the Thunder can close it off, as they'll, no matter who wins this series, it's going to be either team is going to be celebrating its first ever NBA championship. For the Thunder, they haven't been in the finals since 2012 when they 2012 when they had Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook and James Harden on their team. And they actually lost to the Miami Heat, which was led by LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh at the time. So you have that right there. And the Thunder are, if I'm reading this correctly, they are 6.5-point favorites in this, as the spread's at 6.5. Gamble responsibly, and the over-unders at 22.5. So you have that right there. And then I feel Oklahoma City can cover, but it's going to be tough just because they're playing on the road. And then if the Thunder and here's my prediction right here. If the Thunder shoot more than 40% from downtown, I think they have this thing locked up. I think they can win this one just because the Pacers would have to match the Thunder's fast pace and high scoring ability. And I just think without a fully healthy Tyrese Halliburton, they just don't have what it takes to keep up with the Thunder if it becomes a high scoring affair. Now, let's say I'm wrong and the Pacers do force a Game 7. Well, that will be on Sunday. and that will be a barn burner. That would be such a fun game because there's no better words in the world of sports than Game 7 or basically sudden death for that matter. So I feel I wouldn't be surprised if this series went to Game 7, but I also wouldn't be surprised if the Thunder just blew the doors off the Pacers. But it's so tough to win in Indiana. But I just think the Thunder, this is their time to shine, and they basically have the Pacers pretty much down for the count. So the Pacers are really going to need to have other players step up and whatnot. So there you go. All right, that is that for the Pacers and the Thunder. It's going to be fun times. So today is Thursday, so we've got our Fan Poll Thursday. So I actually have a few polls for you all. So let's start off with this. Who will win the NCAA Men's Baseball Championship? LSU with their experience of being there, or will it be Coastal Carolina with their momentum and their feel-good story of also being a mid-major? So, and there you have right there. Let us all know. Sound off in the comments. And then you also have, in terms of the NBA polls, will the Thunder close it out, or will the Pacers force a Game 7? Basically, in English, who will win tonight in Game 6, the Thunder or the Pacers? I think it'll be fun times, and I think either of those can happen. I think either or can happen. It's 50-50 in my opinion. But I want you all, the fans, to let me know, who do you have winning the Men's College World Series, and who do you have winning Game 6 tonight in the NBA Finals? Just let me know. Let me know. I would love to read your comments and hear what you have in terms of your takes. I think it's great that we get the fans involved. But let's go to the quick hits while we await the fans' discussion. So in terms of the WNBA, tonight the Fever and the Valkyries play one another, as it's going to be played in the Bay Area. So will Caitlin Clark continue to shine, or will the Golden State Valkyries have their time to shine? Because remember, they're an expansion team and they've made history in more ways than one. So you never know. And especially since the Valkyries are hungry for some big breakout wins. Then jumping to the MLB, we have the series to watch for, other series to watch for. You have Yankees, Red Sox, which actually I think kind of rekindled their rivalry, because everyone was thinking, and if you heard Bullpen Bulletin or with Ricky K, Alden K, and Mike Pat, I kind of feel that the Yankees-Red Sox series was dying out, and I feel it wasn't as exciting because back in the old days, Yankees-Red Sox was intense, and both teams, and every player on both teams would do anything to win. I think Derek Jeter had the time where he batted the baseball down in a playoff series and whatnot. So, and then another thing to watch for in terms of the MLB is the Mariners. Now, here's my thing when it comes to the Mariners. Is their win streak for real, or is it just a mirage in the desert? I want you all to let me know. Are the Mariners on the rise silently, or is this just another ebb and flow when it comes to their season? So just let me know and whatnot. So you have that for the MLB, but back to the Red Sox Yankees. I like that the series is kind of getting a little intense and whatnot, and how it's getting a little fiery. So if you're an old school baseball fan, if you're an old school Yankees and Red Sox fan, you gotta love that. You gotta love the intensity, because you never know. Because you never know what could happen in that rivalry. But jumping to the MLS, Inter Miami headlines the Club World Cup as the Messi watch continues. And you got to love Lionel Messi. Again, I personally am a Lionel Messi fan. Everyone loves to throw the whole discussion of Cristiano Ronaldo versus Lionel Messi debate and whatnot. But I think Lionel Messi you got to love what he brings, even though he's at an older age and whatnot. So, but we are still on Messi watch. Inter Miami actually was the only team that did not lose the first pool play game in the Club World Cup, which I thought was pretty nice, because LAFC lost, and then Seattle lost by 1. I know LAFC lost by 2, and then you had Inter Miami playing to a scoreless tie, which I thought was kind of impressive if you ask me. I didn't think it was all that great, but at least they didn't lose. So that's the silver lining. So you have that right there. And then jumping on over to the racetrack, we have the NASCAR Pocono race that's going to be this weekend. So Shane Van Gisbergen, I actually didn't have him on my bingo card of if he was going to actually win the race last week. I thought I was kind of wondering why he was the favorite last week, but there's a reason why he was the favorite. He legit wound up winning the race last week, which in Mexico, which again, there hadn't been an international race in over 70 years, which I thought was a pretty nice fun fact right there. But back to Gisbergen, he's on a hot streak. And now he's going to Pocono, which is actually the house of Denny Hamlin. So this kind of makes you wonder, can Denny Hamlin win in Pocono? Or will Shane Van Gisbergen continue his hot streak? Or will another racer rise to the occasion? Because you got a lot of talented racers like Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott. The list goes on and on. So don't count out those guys. I know Shane Van Gisbergen is riding high after his win internationally. But at the same time, you've got a lot of good racers that are still in the hunt for this whole thing. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Staying on the racetrack, we have the IndyCar Road America as Alex Palou. He just continues to maintain his lead. Now, I know that wasn't the case last week, but he still is in the lead when it comes to the whole points overall, which I think is pretty nice right there. Alex Palou has definitely been a juggernaut when it comes to IndyCar and whatnot. So, and he's a young age. Like you have to remember that this guy is really young. He's got a massive career ahead of him, and he's going to take IndyCar by storm. And he might be in the running for IndyCar greatest of all time if you haven't heard the extra mile here on IE Sports Radio. But Alex Palou just continues to just be dominant. He leads the points. But you have other cars in the hunt as well, such as Linus Lundqvist, who I think he can definitely make some noise. He shocked everybody at the pole. I think he definitely has what it takes. You've got others as well, other racers as well in IndyCar. I honestly think Alex Palou is painting himself a target on his back just because he's the youngest, but he's also looking absolutely dominant this IndyCar season. I would not be surprised if he were to win the whole shebang this year. But you've also got Joseph Newgarden to keep an eye out for and so much more in terms of amazing racers. So do not underestimate those guys. But Alex Palou has just been absolutely outstanding. And then jumping over to IMSA, it's Watkins Glen week as Porsche has just been on the come up. Porsche is actually looking to fight back, but Acura is just on a mean streak right here. So keep an eye out for those two right there. Porsche is definitely trying to work its way back. Acura is on a nice little streak. But keep an eye out for some of the other cars as well. Don't be ultimately fixated on those two just because anything can happen in terms of the world of racing, whether it's NASCAR, IndyCar, NHRA, Formula One, IMSA, you name it. So you have that right there, and I think it's going to be a fun race this weekend at the Watkins Glen. And then closing off the quick hits, we have the Travelers Championship. Can Scheffler defend his title or Rory McIlroy be on the rise? And I mentioned another golfer that was basically in the hunt for last year's U.S. Open. And honestly, yeah, my thing is for Rory McIlroy. I feel Rory McIlroy is good. I think he's a fantastic golfer, but I think there's a lot of competition when it comes to other golfers like Scotty Scheffler, and you've also got like Bryson DeChambeau. DeChambeau has been flying under the radar, and I think everyone seems to forget him just because it's always about Rory McIlroy and Scotty Scheffler. I just think that DeChambeau is vastly underrated, and so on and so forth. So, but those two are kind of like the two-headed monster when it comes to, it's kind of like Godzilla and King Kong and whatnot. So there you have it right there. So, And then closing off everything, you've got the NHRA Virginia Heat chaos, as you've got the ever so amazing Tony Stewart taking on Tony Stewart looking to continue his dominance, but you've also got Hagen as well. I think he is those two are basically kind of your David and Goliath to watch for in terms of the funny car and whatnot. So I think it's going to be fun times this weekend when it comes to the NHRA. I hope for the sake of racers, they get their money's worth. But that'll do it for the quick hits. Let's take one last commercial break. When we come back, we've got the looking ahead segment, and we've got next week, and then we've got our closing thoughts and our leadoff locks for the week. So keep it locked here. You were listening to Leadoff Thursdays here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop, including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
And we are back with Leadoff Thursdays here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Thank you to our sponsors for being the official sponsors of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. All right, but let's get on into our bold predictions for the weekend, and then I will send you all on your way. So let's start off with the first one. The Thunder closed off the NBA Finals, and the MVP happens to be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I know Jalen Williams has been amazing and whatnot, but honestly, I will just say I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has his legacy game. I mean, he won regular season MVP. I think he caps it off with another MVP when it comes to this with this big time game, and I think he just goes crazy when it comes to this game. And I think it's going to be I think that's what he's going to do. I think he's going to lead the Thunder, and I think he's going to close off this series and help the Thunder win their first ever NBA championship. And I think he gets the Finals MVP. As Brian Francione says, good evening, Mr. Teran Rodriguez. Thank you, Brian, for popping into the chat room. I appreciate it. But I think the Thunder close it off, like I mentioned earlier, and then MVP will be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. If Jalen Williams has himself a game, I think he can be in the consideration. But for me, I think it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So second bold prediction of the weekend, Coastal Carolina will shock the world and beat LSU and win the College World Series. As good as LSU is, let's all be realistic. LSU is really good. But I think Coastal Carolina is the good feel-good story. They know they have that history because it's almost been 10 years since Coastal Carolina last won the Men's College World Series. And I think this is their time to shine. And I think LSU, as good as they are, I think their momentum will eventually wear off, whereas Coastal Carolina, their hot streak will continue to rise and whatnot. So overall, the Coastal Carolina, I think they'll be able to shock the world, and I think they'll be able to take down LSU. Now, maybe I'm saying that to be a little bit vague. I think shock the world is kind of a little pushing it at this point, just because Coastal Carolina, there's nothing shocking about them, especially being on a 26-game win streak. But you have that right there, and again, don't be surprised if Coastal Carolina wins it all, because they did so 9 years ago. Let's see if they can repeat history back in 2016. So Yankees, they did lose 6 in a row prior to today. They did manage to pick up a 7-3 win over the Angels, which, bully for you. You beat the Angels. What do you want, a cookie? But for the Yankees, is there supposed to be panic in the Bronx? Should Yankee fans be panicking? Because their lead over the Tampa Bay Rays in the AL East, it's down to just 2 games. And you know who else is right on their coattails? The Toronto Blue Jays, who's only 3 games back. And heck, even the Red Sox, even though we're all hearing reports that the Red Sox are resetting, the Red Sox are rebuilding, they're sellers at this point. I think the Red Sox, they're still a threat to the Yankees. I know they won't have Rafael Devers anymore, but the Red Sox are also still in prime position to get at least a wild card spot. And they've proved this past weekend that they can not only hang with the Yankees, they can beat them as well. But the Yankees seem to have gotten their drought under control. I mean, this was kind of a good win for them, winning 7-3 over the Angels. I mean, if they were to get swept in a 4-game series against the Angels, that would have been that. Then I think that the panic button would be hit. But I don't think there's too much panic. I think Yankee fans just need to calm down. I think they need to get some wins like they did today, and they got to make sure that they don't lose the games that they're supposed to lose. They're supposed to lose because they have the Orioles this weekend. They got to win those just because the Orioles they have a lot of problems. There's no dancing around it. And then they've got Cincinnati, very winnable, right? Semi-winnable right there. Then you've got the Oakland A's. That's another winnable series next week. And then you've got Toronto, another big-time series right there. It's a 4-game series in Toronto. And then they've got the Mets and then the Mariners, which are surging. And then Chicago to basically close off the first half of the league. So there you have it right there. And yeah, the first half of the league right there, just because once mid-July hits, then that's when the All-Star break happens. But Yankees definitely have some favorable series and favorable matchups going ahead, but they just can't afford to just go in there all willy-nilly thinking that it's going to be easy sauce. So all in all, Yankees, there should be a little panic, but I don't think it's time to hit the panic button just yet. And then Shane Van Gisbergen, I think he finishes top 5. I think he continues his momentum. I don't know if he'll win, but I think he finishes top 5 at Pocono. His overall skill has been proven, and he definitely has been absolutely amazing this NASCAR season. And he's put the entire NASCAR world on notice. I think Shane Van Gisbergen is a fantastic racer, and he definitely proved that at the International Speedway of New Mexico. I think he's definitely going to prove to everyone that he is not only going to be a household name in terms of NASCAR, but he's also going to be a big name all over the racing world. I think Shane Van Gissenberg is great, and this is no accident. No pun intended. I think his success is no accident. I think he's definitely proving himself as a contender for the NASCAR championship or NASCAR playoffs. And if I'm a big-time racer like Larson or Hamlin or Logano or Bubba Wallace or anything of that sort, I'm keeping a sharp eye on Gissenberg. Or Gisbergen. Why did I say Gissenberg? But Gisbergen has just been absolutely amazing, or SVG. I think he's definitely going to be something. He's definitely someone to watch for, and he'll definitely finish top 5. That's my prediction right there. But I feel that everyone's going to be gunning for him, because with great success comes greater enemies. So there you have it right there. That is going to be those are my bold. My bold predictions right there. Before we get on into looking ahead, I actually do want to pose one more question to everybody, to you, the fans. We had a no-hitter in the College World Series, and this might have been one of the best things we've ever seen. Gage Wood threw a no-hitter and whatnot. And yes. But yeah, Gage Wood had a historic no-hitter for Arkansas against Murray State and whatnot. So my question to you all is this one of the best performances, not only in college baseball, but overall? Is that the best historical performance we've seen in any baseball game? Not just in college baseball, but in baseball overall. Is that the best thing we've seen in baseball in a hot minute? And that's what I'm asking you all, the fans. So, but in case you all are kind of living under a rock or don't follow college baseball, Gage Wood had a complete game no-hitter for Arkansas to knock out Murray State. Eventually, Arkansas did get knocked out by LSU, but Gage Wood's historic no-hitter and his complete game was absolutely amazing. It's very tough to have a no-hitter, let alone a complete game no-hitter, especially at that stage of a baseball season, which I think is pretty incredible, if you ask me. So, again, I want you, the fans, to let me know, is Gage Wood's historic no-hitter, which was also a complete game, one of the best moments we've seen in baseball history, college or baseball overall? So, anyway, that'll do it for that little moment right there. That's some food for thought that I've had on my mind. But anyway, so looking ahead, now we can look ahead. So sorry if I've kind of been deviating from the schedule, but now we can look ahead to next week. So whether we get a Game 7 or not, next week actually will be all eyes on the NBA draft, which, I mean, this year's class isn't as flashy or big time, but honestly, I think that this year's class is just going to be just as good. I think all eyes are on Ace Bailey, who didn't show up to a Philadelphia 76ers workout. Oof. Tough times for the Sixers, but I digress. And then you've got free agent frenzy happening right in the NBA. I think that's going to be fun times right there. And honestly, it won't be as craziness as the NFL. I'm going to throw that out there, and I want you guys to let me know, what is NBA free agency just as good as NFL free agency? But I think NBA free agency is not as good as NFL free agency, but I think it can be just as good. I mean, obviously there was the decision with LeBron James going to the Miami Heat and then going back to Cleveland and so on and so forth, and then signing with the Lakers, blah, 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 blah. But I think NBA free agency is going to have some eyes on when it comes to sports fans, especially with the NFL not happening for a while and all the NFL free agency kind of being cooled off and whatnot. And then next week, we also have the MLB All-Star voting closing. I think, okay, I'm going to say this. I'm not ultimately keen on the MLB All-Star game. I mean, I feel All-Star breaks are kind of, I wouldn't say dying out, other than like the I think that was, I forget the name of the whole Canada versus USA thing, but honestly, I'm not the biggest guy when it comes to like MLB, when it comes to like all-star games and whatnot. I definitely am a fan of the home run derby. That's fun right there. But all-star voting closes next week. Definitely get your votes in for your favorite players. I kind of feel that sometimes fan voting kind of gets in the way of like certain players and who truly deserves it versus players that actually deserve it versus like fan favorites. Like, don't get me wrong, Shohei Ohtani, everyone knows he's the fan favorite in terms of the MLB, but he kind of deserves it just because even though he hasn't pitched out prior to Monday, he definitely is a fan favorite, and he's definitely one of the faces of the MLB. But yeah, definitely get your votes in case you actually are a fan of the MLB All-Star game and whatnot. So you have that right there. Then jumping on over to soccer, we have the Gold Cup knockout stage. So the USA's path is revealed after they managed to win a match. So yeah, even though the U.S. men's national team is nowhere near as good as they are in years past, I think the U.S. has now seen their path. I think they now know what to do in terms of winning matches and how they could hopefully go on a mean streak and win it all. But let's be honest, the U.S. needs to start playing a little bit more cleaner soccer just because I know they have a new coach, but this is so unnatural for them. This is like totally unnatural for them in terms of how they've struggled and whatnot. I just feel that this isn't like the U.S. men's national team, because next year, y'all got to remember that next year is the World Cup, and we need the U.S. to be in tip-top shape and ready to go for that. So I think this whole Gold Cup knockout stage is going to be kind of a dress rehearsal, kind of a preview of what we could see when it comes to the U.S. Because if the U.S. actually does well in the knockout stage, I think us U.S. fans need to kind of pump the brakes on it. But at the same time, I think that the U.S. has a lot more to improve on. They just haven't been looking like the U.S. men's national team that we all come to know and love, especially when they lost to Turkey a couple of weeks ago. So there you have it right there. And then closing off, we have the WNBA Commissioner's Cup final, as the Fever are one of two teams that have punched their ticket to the Commissioner's Cup championship, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's always great to see Caitlin Clark just continuing to do her thing and whatnot. I think I kind of pitched this at the beginning of the show. Is she the face of the WNBA? Is she the true face of the WNBA? And I definitely think she is, just because she's so popular and whatnot. So the Fever will await to see who they'll be playing in terms of the Commissioner's Cup championship, and we shall see if the Fever can continue to rise. No pun intended, by the way. But that'll do it for that for the looking ahead segment. So now for the closing thoughts. So the leadoff and lock of the week, it's basically Mets winning it. Honestly, the Mets they know what's at stake here. The Mets know that if they lose 2 of 3 to the Phillies, then the race in terms of the NL East gets so much more interesting and so much more dangerous, just because it looked like the Phillies were pretty much dead in the water, but now the Phillies have kind of rose to the occasion, and it's basically between those two teams. I don't see the Braves catching up. The Nationals aren't going to catch up, and let's not get me started on the Miami Marlins. So the Mets know that and the Mets have lost 5 straight. There's something else to realize. The Mets have lost 5 straight games, and this is not like the Mets we've come to know and love, because this isn't the Mets team that made it all the way to the National League Championship, where they did lose to the Dodgers, but honestly, it's the Dodgers. What are you going to do? But the Phillies have really impressed me. I think the Phillies have definitely impressed me. I just think this weekend is the Mets series to get themselves back on track, because if they don't, I guarantee you that that might actually haunt the Mets. I mean, they obviously have to get through tonight, where they actually have to win their games, and they have to beat their opponent, which they were up against. I will also mention that right there, but we haven't had a quick update. They are playing the Braves, just an FYI for those that were curious and whatnot. And they are tied where the Braves actually have the bases loaded with 2 outs. So there's that right there. But yeah, the Mets, they really need to start winning and winning fast, because their lead because it only takes a few losing streaks to see your status in any league, any division, go up in flames. So I think for the Mets, that this is their weekend to hopefully shine, and hopefully the lights don't get too bright, because if they do, then this kind of makes you kind of wonder, should we have a discussion about the Mets? Are they actually deteriorating? Are the Phillies actually rising? Are there other teams in the National League that can rise and maybe challenge the likes of the Dodgers and whatnot? So all in all, that series, I'm picking the Mets to win at least 2 games. If they sweep the Phillies, then the demise of the Mets have been greatly exaggerated. But again, losing 5 straight is not ideal. And this was after they wound up winning 5 straight. So again, keep an eye on the Mets, Phillies. That's your series of the week, but that's my lock of the week right there. Let me know if you have any other locks of the week right there and whatnot, because that's basically the fun series of the weekend. But that's going to do it for this week's show of Lead Off Thursdays. It is time to get on out of here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Lead Off Thursdays. I greatly appreciate you all. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you. Thank you to those that contributed to the chat room, whether it was relevant or not. I really appreciate you. I'll be back on Thursday with another episode of Lead Off Thursdays. Definitely check out all the sports happening, whether it's collegiate, whether it's professional. It's definitely worth checking out. I think the Men's College World Series is the last event in terms of collegiate sports, and then we have to wait for 2025 to 26 in terms of the calendar sports year. But I digress. But for everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off of Lead Off Thursdays. Have a great weekend. Enjoy all of the sports action. Enjoy yourselves. Be safe. Be well. And I will see you all Monday for Set Points. And I'll see you back here Thursdays with another episode of Lead Off Thursdays. Have a great weekend, everybody. Peace.